Good day, everybody. Here I am, Menopause Taylor, bringing you the state of menopause in the world today with yet another tutorial on options for preventing a heart attack. And today we're going to talk about your lifestyle options for preventing a heart attack. You know, this unit on heart attacks just goes on and on and on. We've worked our way through all the stuff about statistics, the cause, the symptoms, and the research. And now we're addressing all the things you can do to prevent a heart attack. So I've just given you 3 podcasts on the dietary options for preventing a heart attack. And now I'm going to discuss the lifestyle measures you can implement to reduce your risk and prevent a heart attack. Now, if you're sitting there thinking you already know everything there is to know about how to prevent a heart attack, I hope you're right. But I'll bet you're wrong. So I would suggest that you listen to this podcast just to be sure. And as you've discovered in the previous podcasts, I like to tie these risk-reducing measures to the risk factors that put you at high risk for a heart attack in the first place. So I have a long list that I've presented of all the risk factors for a heart attack. And what the key is to see how the correlation of the factors themselves works with your options for preventing a heart attack. And in this case, for today's tutorial, the lifestyle measures that we're going to address, or I should say the risk factors that we're going to address for a heart attack, are smoking, obesity, fat in your abdomen, a sedentary lifestyle, and gum disease. And there's going to be one more item that I add to this that isn't on that list. So I'm going to go through and present these one at a time. We'll start with no smoking. The first thing you can do to prevent a heart attack is stop smoking if you're a smoker and never start if you're not. Remember when I explained long ago that your blood carries oxygen to your organs? Well, when you smoke, the oxygen that travels to your organs is polluted. And because it's polluted, your organs do not get the same quality of oxygen that they would get if it weren't polluted. Not only that, they don't get as much oxygen as they would get if you didn't smoke. So it affects the quantity as well as the quality of oxygen. The smoke occupies some of the space that is supposed to contain oxygen. So the overall result of smoking is that your heart gets less oxygen, and the oxygen it does get is polluted. So it affects both the quantity and the quality of oxygen. All told, smoking has many negative effects on your heart and even on menopause itself. To start, smoking lowers the age at which you become postmenopausal by about 2 years. And the more you smoke, the earlier you'll become postmenopausal. That alone is significant. Now, why is that? Well, it's because your risk for a heart attack begins to increase when you become postmenopausal. So the later your menopause, the lower your risk for a heart attack. But you'll see that the opposite is true for some of the other diseases that I'll be discussing. So how much can you benefit by discontinuing smoking? Well, after just 1 year of not smoking, you will have decreased your risk of a heart attack by 50%. And after 3 years of not smoking, you will have nearly erased your increased risk altogether. Isn't that incredible? I mean, this is so worth it. You'll save your money and your life. So if you're a smoker, your very best option is just to quit smoking. Now, the next lifestyle risk factor is obesity. That means that you can lower your risk for a heart attack by controlling your weight. Now, weight control is a very broad term. And for purposes of preventing a heart attack, it's really too broad. And that's because when it comes to your risk for a heart attack, the location of excess weight is the most critical thing of all. Do you remember when I taught you about truncal obesity? Well, truncal obesity is defined as a waist measurement of greater than 35 inches or 89 centimeters. Or it's a waist to hip ratio of greater than 0.8. Or it's an apple shape rather than a pear shape. The bottom line is this: the bigger your belly compared to your hips, the higher your risk of heart attack. So if you're pear-shaped, you are not at a higher risk for heart attack. But if you're apple-shaped, you are. Heart attacks are directly related to how big your belly is. The bigger your belly, the greater your risk. Unfortunately, menopause itself makes us gain weight in our belly region. It's one of the things women hate most about menopause. So weight control addresses two of the items on the list of risk factors for heart attack: obesity and fat in your abdomen. And that brings us to the third lifestyle measure for reducing your risk for heart attack: exercise. A sedentary lifestyle is a strong risk factor for a heart attack, and exercise is the antidote. But the word exercise is also very broad. There are many different types of exercise, and different types of exercise serve different purposes. Not all exercise serves the purpose of preventing a heart attack. The kind of exercise that suffices for preventing a heart attack has to meet some very specific requirements. And those specific requirements are as follows. Number one, it has to be, quote, aerobic exercise. Number two, you have to do it on a regular basis at least 3 times per week. Number three, the exercise has to raise your heart rate to your target heart rate. And number four, you need to maintain your target heart rate for at least 20 continuous minutes. So let's discuss these. The first one is aerobic exercise, which is also called cardiovascular exercise. Cardiovascular exercise means that your heart and the arteries that supply it with oxygen. So obviously it has to do with your heart. Aerobic or cardiovascular exercise is any activity that causes you to breathe more heavily and causes your heart to beat more quickly. The whole idea is to make your heart and lungs work. That's what decreases your risk for a heart attack. One of the reasons aerobic exercise is good is that it activates your lymph system. Your lymph system is like your body's sewer. It gets rid of your waste. And when you exercise in a manner that activates your lymph system, you can flush out some of the fats that can block your arteries. Now, the next requirement is that you exercise regularly. You don't have to do the same aerobic exercise all the time. In fact, it's good to engage in a variety of exercises. But you do need to exercise at least 3 times each week. If you're only exercising on an occasional weekend, you are not doing what it takes to reduce your risk of heart attack. And next is something called target heart rate. Your target heart rate is how fast your heart needs to beat in order to accomplish the goal of reducing your risk for a heart attack. And your target heart rate is specific to you. It's something you have to calculate. So here's how you determine your target heart rate. You start with your age. No fibbing. Use your real age. In fact, it is to your disadvantage to use a younger age for this calculation. All this lying about age, I just don't get it. I mean, if you're going to lie about your age, you should do so in a way that at least gets you a compliment. Don't shave off a few years. That makes you look older than you are. Instead, add about 20 years. That way, everyone will say you look great. Okay, back to our calculation. What you do is this. You subtract your age from the number 220. And the resulting number is your ideal maximum heart rate. Okay, so I'm 61. So 220 minus 61 is 159. So 159 is my goal. That's my ideal maximum heart rate. But hey, depending on my fitness level, I may or may not be able to reach my goal. I have to deal with my reality. So tuck that ideal maximum heart rate away for a while. You're going to work toward that number. Right now, you want to figure out your actual maximal heart rate during exercise. That's going to be what you can do right now. And here's how you calculate that. Just start exercising moderately. And you do this by walking at a moderate pace. It shouldn't be a leisurely stroll, nor should it be fast enough to make you huff and puff. It should be a pace that you can maintain for a long time. You know, a steady, brisk walk that enables you to still talk is perfect. Now, after about 5 minutes, take your pulse for a full 1 minute while you continue walking. Or maybe you have one of those nifty gadgets that takes your pulse for you. The number of times your heart beats during a minute of moderate exercise is your actual maximum heart rate during exercise. Okay, so now it's time to figure out your target heart rate. Your target heart rate is 50 to 85% of that actual maximum heart rate during exercise that you just calculated. And then you'll find target heart rate charts in gyms and websites and everywhere. Your target heart rate is a range within which you want to maintain your heart rate during your exercise. And it's not going to be as high as you might have imagined. And that's because you can't maintain a very high heart rate for very long. Most people are very pleasantly surprised when they see their target heart rate because it's very reasonable. And the goal is to be able to maintain it over time. Okay, and the last requirement for exercise to prevent a heart attack is that you maintain the exercise for at least 20 minutes. You know, in the next podcast, I'll be giving you some examples of the various kinds of exercise that qualify for preventing a heart attack. And one of the most important things, though, is to manage your expectations. The exercise you need for preventing a heart attack is not enough to result in weight loss. Weight loss is a whole different ballgame. And belly fat is the most difficult weight to lose. So keep this in perspective. Today, all I'm doing is giving you exercise parameters to prevent a heart attack. I'm not talking about losing weight. Okay, now moving on to the next lifestyle measure for reducing your heart rate, reducing your risk for a heart attack. It's to avoid a sedentary lifestyle. This might sound redundant after just having talked about exercise, but the two are really quite distinct. Sedentary lifestyle means that you lounge a lot, you're a couch potato, you drive when you can walk, you park as close to the building as possible, you use the elevator instead of using the stairs, you sit at a desk all day long, you ask others to fetch things for you, you pay someone else to do the things you could be doing yourself. You spend many hours a day on the computer or on your iPhone. You text a lot. You use social media a lot. You play many video games. You're lazy. You get the picture. Much of life these days is sedentary. It seems that the more we advance technologically, the less we do physically. You know, some people say that sitting is the new smoking. It's a metaphor because it means that having a sedentary lifestyle now increases your risk for a heart attack as much as smoking does. Well, fewer people smoke these days, but more people have sedentary lifestyles.